Hey, I'm Steve Lee and I was a senior level designer on Dishonored 2, and this video is me going back to Dishonored 1, which I didn't work on, and geeking out about my favourite level in it, which is the Overseer Campbell mission. This was originally something we recorded as part of our monthly call that we do as a Patreon supporter thing, but I've since edited it down and added a load of stuff to make it a tighter, juicier video. Let's jump in. Okay. The thing I always think about when I just play this first mission is just how perfectly composed the environment looks around you. The view you have looking in every direction just looks like a lovely little painting. Another thing I like about these boat rides is that you can look around up to about 180 degrees left and right. And it's a small thing, but I feel like a lot of other games will treat this like a cutscene. And also that restriction that stops you looking past 180 degrees to the left or right supports the feeling that you're actually sitting on a boat, because you wouldn't be able to turn all the way around. So I just really like that Dishonored cares about these little immersive details. Any thoughts on how you'd like me to play? Like stealthily or a bit of combat or whatever?
I try to play this as stealthy and non-violent as possible, and it would be fun to see you do the same thing.
Okay, I'll try to be stealthy. Yeah, like that's something you kind of don't see very this here, where you can see kind of two scenes at once. It's quite a clever thing to me because they're conveying narrative stuff, but they're doing it in the distance. So you feel like there's a load of stuff going on around you, but you also don't have to worry about a lot of it from a stealth perspective until you get closer. Yoink! Oh, let's see how this works.
1, 2, 3, heave!
Oh, this isn't going to work out well. And I'm remembering that you can't grab them and kind of choke them out anymore once combat has started. That was added as a feature in the sequel, and it helps the player kind of stay non-violent, basically. Which I've just done a terrible job of. So we could actually go in there, but I know that there's an alleyway down here. Let's go check out Granny Regs.
I think the little birdies are sad today.
Locked door.
Dear?
Voiced by Susan Sarandon.
Is that you, my dear husband? Have you seen my...
So this is quite a big thing that right at the start of the level they place this narrative character who is a recurring character and eventually even a boss fight, I think. Mild spoilers. To me it sets a tone for what the game is, in the sense that it makes it very clear that there's quite juicy stuff to find in the optional side paths right at the start of the level. Now they've got this kind of nice scripted thing going on with these guys outside.
We're here to take your money.
Oh, he was looking through the keyhole when I did.
In our time. How much could she have?
I love stuff like this, and it's a very Dishonored thing to me, where you script situations that force the player to interact with characters and make interesting choices, and often the choices the player makes lead to some interesting, sometimes emergent gameplay situations. The big set piece at the end of this level does this brilliantly, and I'll get onto that later. We're gonna kill the nasty men.
Open up!
I know we were gonna try and play stealthy, but these are bad people. Oh shit! Completely screwed that up. Oh dear.
I'll find you another present just like the first.
Alright. Cheers, Granny. Let's go. Oh, and this leads to... I've never even been down here. Oh, there's... oh, maybe I have, yeah. So this is where a couple of thugs down there, I think outside the shop. This is... and this door goes to a completely optional separate area, which, for the sake of pacing, I don't think we'll do on this playthrough. So that's a pretty big side route, but I just want to compare it to the main route and get a sense of the choices that are kind of presented to the player at this point. I don't think there's an equivalent optional side street down there. So they have the main route, and they have this kind of very clear side street. I think given that this is the first mission, it's really important, and they've done a good job of kind of clearly signposting that this is a non-linear game where you can make these kind of choices. And, you know, you're going to encounter loads of really interesting stuff if you diverge even slightly off the main path. And there's a kind of middle ground where you can go up here as well. Get over that main wall this way. and reveal the main courtyard from this viewpoint. And this of course gives us the perfectly framed, high perspective, you know, tactical overview of the whole area. So let's sneak forward a little bit. We can, oh, and to the right, I drop down here and this scene starts. Again, it's more nasty, thuggish types harassing some poor old guy.
Because you know we have to check you over.
And similarly to the Granny Rags scene, it kind of reinforces what a bad place Dunwall is. But it also invites the player to step in and interfere and choose what they're going to do, you know? And I tried to do this in the Dust District as well.
What are you looking for? Are you supposed to be scary?
Here's my Dust District version, which has a bit of a Howlers versus Overseers spin on it.
Can't afford with her.
You can watch what's going on secretly through a keyhole.
Why do you take our protection? You don't give me a choice. It's the overseers who don't give you a choice.
And then the player's free to open the door and interrupt if they like, and kind of look them in the face and choose to fight if they want, or walk away.
Get your ass out of here if you know what's good for you.
Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. Oh, I love the rats. We should go and check those out. See if there's anything fun to do.
Isn't it like the higher chaos you play on, the more rats there are?
Yeah, in higher chaos there are certain points where bigger swarms and more swarms of rats are placed in the levels. I've just always really admired the rats as a kind of nice piece of systemic game design. You know, they're kind of adding a lot of flavor to the world because they're reinforcing this narrative of the plague having taken over the city and how nasty it is. Oof, they're all getting me. But they're also interesting from a gameplay perspective because they can attack you and your enemies, the guards, but whether they attack is dependent on the size of the group they're in. So they're afraid of humans when there's only a few of them, but if there's lots of them, they'll come and attack you. And just those simple rules generate a lot of different situations where they behave very differently and dynamically, which is really smart. Anyway, I'm gonna run away. I was always trying to request an art asset in Dishonored 2 like this because it's so useful in terms of being cover on a street, but also something you can go inside and a place to hide a body. But it's also really vertically interesting, and you can kind of, you know, it allows you to travel very vertically and get up to places like this and get down from high places like that. It also creates this place where it makes sense for the player to find some juicy loot. So art assets like this in a game where you're so agile, like in a game like Dishonored, is like super useful, and it can make the difference from feeling like, you know, you can do the layout that you want to do as a level designer, or you can't because you just don't have the right pieces to kind of justify the kind of shapes you want. Right, I think we can hold this square. I think we can just sneak to the next area. And there's a set piece in the next area that I really like.
What do you think about the pacing on the route we took just now?
The pacing?
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite hard to say in some ways because the pacing is so player driven. Like, it's really up to the player how fast they play through the level, which parts of the level they go to and experience. I would say that the level is quite spacious and kind of not too dense with events relative to the size of the layout, and I think that's quite important because however the player chooses to play, you don't want different scenes kind of clashing and kind of bleeding into each other. I've always found this a really nice set piece because that guy is basically in a scripted position in those shackles. We assume that we know him because we know his name, Overseer Martin.
It's not so bad.
And, you know, this Overseer doesn't know we're there. And completely in our imagination, we can assume that Martin is looking at us and thinking, oh, I'll just keep this Overseer busy while Corvo sneaks up on him. When really, he's not actually reacting to us at all. So I just thought this was a fairly simple but clever way to create an interesting situation.
Corvo, it's me. What a sight you are in that mask. And word from my informant is that Campbell is going to poison him. Maybe you can use that to your advantage.
Quite a lot of juicy info.
Do you have any help here?
Like really important objective info here. Yeah, what's interesting to me about this is that technically it was optional that I saved that guy and talked to him, but he gave some pretty important information about the poison drinks setup at the end of the level. And when things aren't on the critical path, you've always got to consider, is it a big problem if the player doesn't hear that bit of information? But in this case, I think it would be fine because practically every player will talk to him. Like, why wouldn't you?
Have you ever seen the rituals? I've never seen the heretics brand used. No, it's a rare occurrence.
There's an optional route there, which I'm kind of curious about. I don't know if I can get in there.
Remember the seven.
Just about able to sneak in there without them seeing. Whoa!
Checking out.
I didn't see that guy.
What was that?
Well, keep your eyes open.
Oh dear. What? There's two. Whoa. Oh no. Too many of them. Whoever asked me to play really stealthily, I apologize.
I think this is entertaining.
Yeah, that was a bit tricky, a bit of a tricky layout in terms of like maybe particularly the way I snuck in. I didn't see any of those guys. And then the other tricky thing is that this area that we're in is close enough to that area that if I start fighting here, those guys instantly heard it and barge in. And so that's another kind of important consideration with stealth level design. You generally want the player to be able to recover from little mistakes and not feel too like overly punished. And it's good to be careful about too many enemies kind of being triggered by other enemies being triggered. Not that this was too bad, but it's just a thing. Let's carry on. Oh, so this is that way. Interesting. That's the main entrance to the big overseer building. Normally, the route I take when I play this, I would be up here. Two guys were talking there. And you can go all the way, if you're clever with the blinking. To me, what this has always stood up to me as is like a really nice example of designing the level so that playing the cool, unique, stealthy way is the natural way in the first level. And this kind of shows you like, oh, I can do these amazing things because I have blink in this game. You want it to be kind of easy to do the cool Corvo thing in the first mission, just so that players know that that's what this game is about, you know? And this always struck me as a really cool way to kind of sneak into a base, you know? And now I can jump in through any of these windows, I think. I remember the first time I played this, I was like, wow, I can't believe I can be up here. There's so many ways I could choose to play this. Right, so branding instructions, meeting chamber. Whoop. Let's see where this guy's going. Is he gonna? Whoop.
Did you get caught in the lockdown last night? 6 hours. Search the place top to bottom, and nothing to eat but the.
Whoa, that was a bit risky.
Of course, we didn't find anything. That's clear enough.
These bookcases and cabinets are like another nice example of just like, to me, it's one of the key, I suppose, metrics of sorts in Dishonored, where it's like this is the kind of height where you can look down on people and they feel close to you, and like you can get them, but you're also high enough that they can't see you. And it's just like, it kind of perfectly sells the fantasy of what it is to be stealthy in Dishonored, which is like looking down on people like a little hawk almost, you know. And I'm guessing that's about 5 meters tall. And so I would always be looking for opportunities to create rooms where you have opportunities like 5 or 6 meters above the floor to look down on enemies from, because it's just quite key to the fantasy and the mechanics of Dishonored.
Not to the flooded district, surely.
So here's the branding instructions. We'll see about doing the Heretics brand thing in one of these playthroughs. But first, let's just head to the meeting room. Oh, so this is we're in the poison drinks room now. So Overseer Campbell has poisoned a drink to kill the guy he's talking to in this meeting. Currently, if I don't switch these drinks, he'll be poisoned. I could switch the poison to Campbell's side and kill him, which is kind of satisfying. Or if I think they both deserve to die, I could combine them and poison both. I could spill them just to kind of spook them, or I could do nothing. And I think to begin with we'll play it straight, kind of simple way, which is to switch the poison to Campbell's side and let Colonel live.
She'll be found. My men are searching district by district.
Let's hide away up here and see what happens.
Will you have wine? It's a Tivian red.
I love to hide under the table. Oh, and this makes me think of something that's really important to me and stealth, which is the importance of like intimacy in a way. You know, like, oh, the poison's kicking in.
This can't be happening. Who's done this?
What on earth are you talking about? No time, no time.
But yeah, you know, stealth is so much more interesting and exciting if you're close to the people you're hiding from than if you're far away. And in this case, we get to poison this guy and then watch him die right in front of us, which is grim and dramatic and cinematic and cool. And here, it looks like, I've no idea if it was intentional, but it feels like they animated it to look like he almost spots me under the table just before he dies, which I always thought was cool. And now guards run in, and I'm still hiding under the table, and this is just such an interesting situation to be in. And then if we keep on watching, it turns out they get into a massive argument.
Stuff your report, Colonel, and I'll have your weapons at once. Idiot! One step closer and I'll gut.
Just seeing all of this unfold right in front of you as a result of the choice you made with the drinks is... The first time I played this, I just loved it. And now we go into systemic combat between these AIs, but it's 3 against 1, so it's kind of inevitable that they win. And then they're all scripted to run away through the building. But let me reload and we can do it another way.
Can you spill the glasses and wait longer until they stop talking, and you can actually follow the overseer Campbell to his secret chamber. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we'll spill the glasses and then just see what happens as a result. So yeah, in general, what I love about this set piece is that, first of all, it's that really interesting combination I talked about with the Granny Rags thing of scripted content and branching that leads to lots of interesting emergent situations.
Here we are.
Another cool thing about that choice with the poison drinks is that it's really clear and interesting how different those choices are and the consequences that they will lead to. You can kind of imagine it when you're making the choice, which is a good thing. And finally, it's just a cool, cinematic, satisfying thing to do that completely nails the fantasy of the game. You know, there's nothing more Dishonored that you could do than have the choice to turn the poison of a corrupt official on himself and decide how you feel about what these two characters deserve. I spent a long time trying to think of something cool in a similar way for the Dust District, but I just couldn't come up with anything that felt appropriate and, you know, as interesting as this. And it made me appreciate this scene even more. Oh no! Have they gone after me? Nope. Okay. All hell has broken loose yet again. No, not to the kennels. Oh, he's here. Special death animation for the target. Okay, so let's try that again. Now we're following Campbell and Colonel after they left the meeting room, and they're here. What are they up to? Oh, there we go. So they're kind of scripted to stand here and kind of sneakily wait for the player, I think. And when the player approaches, they use this weird thing outside to open the secret door. And now we can follow them in. I remember when Dishonored 1 came out, we were still working on Bioshock Infinite, and every Friday night, all of us level designers would go to the bar and talk about what we did in Dishonored that week. And this was exactly the kind of thing I would talk about, which I just thought was awesome.
To be early Sokolov, something primal in there. The way the brushwork slashes across the canvas.
I never noticed that, how he talks about slashing across the canvas as he brings his sword out. Nice touch.
Anytime and I'm happy. Or a man hunting. If there's a pretty lady in it, I don't...
Ah! Campbell! You fucking snake! I'll see you dead.
Again, it's such a cool thing to kind of spy on as a result of a choice you made. And now I'm always curious to see what happens if you just watch them after something like this. What else do they do? That must have gave him a patrol path or something to... That's a bit weird. If he doesn't do anything. Just stares at a painting of himself forever. Okay, I'm just going to take him out. I have a feeling something might have been up there with the scripting or something. Not sure. So I've technically done the mission there by stealing his book. But now we can take him to the branding room. Oh, one cool thing, I don't know if people remember this, in the very first intro level to this game, you see Sokolov painting this picture, and it's half done. And on the table, there's a bottle of water. And if you steal the water like I did, then Sokolov kind of paints it out and it's no longer in the finished painting. And so right from the beginning of the game, there's little things like that which tell you like, oh, it's a game you can kind of play around with and it will respond to you, which is really cool. Steal that painting. Let's try and do the branding thing. Turn the music off. Interrogation room chair. Oh. I find it strange how sometimes heads pop off really easily. And I always found it really funny how that when you pick it up, it's sideways for some reason on the screen.
She may fall.
Floating around. Anyway. So here, I think must be the brand. Yeah, there we go. I've got the Heretics brand now. Let's close that door before anyone else comes in. Alright, we've done it in a non-lethal way. Still pretty nasty, as always. Return to Samuel. And this leads us to... what is that?
Fine. Look at you. You have the blade.
Oh, this is... I was wondering where this is. This is a scene where some overseers are arguing because they think that one of them has the plague. Or at least that's what they claim.
I tell you, I am well.
And again, this reads so differently after COVID. But this was really interesting to see because they end up killing him. And you kind of don't know if it was because they genuinely thought he had the plague or they just wanted to get rid of him for some reason. But I remembered this scene and riffed off it in the Dust District, in the Overseer HQ. In this case, you know, I was trying to present the player with an interesting choice of helping the Overseers or the Howlers, and I like the idea that on the way to killing the Overseer leader, and presumably taking out some Overseers on the way, you would stumble upon quite an intimate scene of an Overseer mercy killing his friend after he got injured in battle. And I just thought this would be interesting in the context of the level, but also in comparison to the scene in Dishonored 1.
He was sick. Very, very sick.
Trying to kind of echo the original game and reinforce certain ideas about the Overseers, but with a little twist.
Spreading his illness.
I'm sure there's all kind of juicy goodies in one of those. Oh no, just some rats. Not much. There we go. And this is it, the end of the level. So, cheers for tuning in, everyone. Hope it was interesting and not too much of a mess.
That was really good. Thank you, Steve.
Cool. I'll let you know when it's all posted up and stuff like that.
For sure. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you very much, Steve.
No worries.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy, everyone. See ya.